Ivan, as the head of the Leadership and Governance Academy at TCDC, and as the ULI Program Director, you are also offering leadership for this Youth Governance Architecture study. We'd like to find out from you why this study is important, not just for TCDC, but for the region.
First of all, the study addresses the evidence gap that exists on youth programming. There is a lot that many players are trying to do for the young people and with the young people, but we need to update the status of affairs of the young people. What do the young people want to see more in their space, and what areas do they need support more? And so this research is an effort to collect data, evidence, to inform what the young people really aspire for, and for players like government, civil society and development partners to program on the basis of such evidence in order to be responsive to the current needs of the young people in the region.
I believe that we are still trapped into a narrative seeing young people as this homogeneous group, without realizing that there is a massive difference of circumstances from 18 to 35, and then all these socioeconomic circumstances. But then when we take a step back and think of young women, we know that patriarchy negatively affects their participation at private and public life. As such, when we want to investigate to which extent the environment is enabling youth participation, we need also to focus specifically on young women participation. Young women participation is this big, different group. Let's take, for example, young women with disabilities. Which type and form of disabilities? What type of socio-economic challenges and circumstances affect them? What's their level of education? And many other aspects from rural to urban, and also the way the digital divide affects them. Starting from this kind of analysis, we have then realized that it was extremely important not just to investigate youth participation, but even more, young women participation from an inclusive perspective, which means that we have focused as well on young people with disabilities.
The research addresses the programming needs of a cluster and set of players. To begin with, the youth themselves. They need a space and a process through which they can express their own needs, aspirations, and what they want to see working on, and whoever wants to support them, where they should put the support. 2, government policymakers at all levels, from national youth councils to members of parliament that represent young people, but also policymakers in the institutions of government, such as national youth councils and ministries responsible for taking care of the needs of the young people, and lastly, the development partners who are supporting government efforts and also in some way supporting young people's efforts. They need to know through this research for the next 3, 4 years, 5 years, what should we prioritize in order to be in solidarity with the young people and address their identified needs.
Conducting such a study, which basis is indeed inclusivity, was not easy, because inevitably we know that the 6 countries of our consideration, but more generally the continent, is affected by an evident digital divide, which means that conducting and trying an outreach to the most vulnerable was not easy. We tried with the expedient of having a cross-sectoral investigation through focus group in each country of our interest. And although it was very interesting of having the engagement with different stakeholders, yet it was a little bit challenging in terms of investigating, collaborating, exchanging with, for example, young people with disabilities, but also different young women groups.
So with the existing frameworks for youth participation in leadership and contribution to the governance of this continent, what is this unique thing we should be looking forward to from this study?
The frameworks are in place, guiding what young people are, who they are, what their needs are, and what governments and other players could do to address these needs. But the frameworks lack a life. Therefore, this study goes a step further. It studies the voices, the needs, and the practice on how young people are being engaged, and addresses the gap of the distance between the frameworks and the needs of young people. If you like, this study moves the frameworks from policies to results, and this is the addition or the value add that the study brings to the very many wonderful frameworks that already exist at national level, regional level, and continental level.